Hello, fellow plant people. Welcome back if you're returning to my channel. If you are new, my name is Jen. I go by The Leafy Geek here, also on Instagram. Before I start this video, I just wanted to give you guys a quick thank you because I hit 200 subscribers overnight last night. And I have 200 plus people who are interested in following me and knowing what I'm doing with my plants in my house. So that's pretty cool. I'm really excited about that. I love having you guys here and I really love interacting with you. So if you ever feel like just leaving a comment down below, if you are watching this and would like to be a part of that conversation, we just talk all sorts of plant stuff here and it's pretty casual and fun. So feel free always to subscribe or like videos. It's totally up to you, but I'm happy you're here. So something that's been on the forefront of my mind fairly recently is space. We're starting the long, painful crawl toward winter here in Minnesota. Well, I guess it's technically toward next spring, because once we kind of hit this point, fall is great. It's a wonderful season. The cooler weather is a constant reminder of the fact that we aren't going to see green things outside for very much longer, and then we won't until probably May. So it kind of becomes an issue when you have enjoyed having some of your plants outside. I'm an avid gardener, so I have flowers. I'm creating a flower bed in my yard. So hopefully that project will kind of reinvigorate or resume in the spring. But I had a lot of my indoor plants outside. If you haven't checked out my video saga drama about that and trying to get them back indoors, please feel free to check out that video. I'll put it in the cards. But again, I'm looking at my house and I'm reevaluating my space, and that's something that's been on the forefront of my mind since I started acquiring more plants. But I definitely just want to utilize my space to its best capacity with the plants, that I have and that I am wanting to have and wanting to collect. And my plants have moved around periodically, kind of learning their preferences in my home. I do that with pretty much every single one. It becomes kind of an issue when you start to have a lot of Hoya or one particular plant that need a certain care list. They need certain light requirements. They, have preferences for temperature. They need those conditions in order to thrive. And so pretty quickly, prime real estate gets taken up. So over the course of my experimentation and learning the conditions in my home and reorganizing and moving things around, I've come up with some space-saving tips that work really well for me. Maybe they'll work well for you. It very much is conditional on what your living situation is like and what types of plants you are able to grow in your home. But as far as space savers go, this is kind of a good list for, I'd say, pretty much everyone. Anyone who lives in the upper Midwest in December is probably going to enjoy this video because we are all trying to save as many plants as we can from the outdoors. I'd like to just share some examples and then also show you some examples of setups in my home that I have going on right now that have really helped me maximize the space, and especially the counter space and table space that I have. So as many a Hoya collector will tell you, hoops and trellises are lifesavers. When you collect a plant whose natural inclination is to vine out everywhere and clamber and tangle in other plants, it's kind of nice to have things contained a little bit. Obviously, you want your plant to kind of live its best life and do what it's inclined to do naturally. So hoops and trellises are a really good way to accommodate them and also accommodate your space a little bit better. So for example, this is my Hoya Bangongoi, and it is quite a robust plant, and it has two main vines coming out this way and this way, and I think they have even forked somewhere up in here. Both of them branched out again, so technically it's 4 vines looping around this trellis, and I think they are going around twice. All 4 of them. I can't really, it's a mess. So I haven't untrellised this one in a while, and honestly I'm kind of scared to, because I don't know what I'm gonna do with all the vine. Like I just, it would be really nerve-wracking actually, because I wouldn't want to break any part of it off necessarily, because I just really love how it's just finding its own way, but yet still, you know, I gave it boundaries, and it's finding its own way within those boundaries. And I do this for as many Hoya as I can, as many Hoya that are kind of natural viners at this point in their growth. And I'm just gonna show you a few of my trellised and hooped plants, because I have a lot of them in here. So welcome to the Avenue of Bamboo Trellises. This is in my plant room, and you guys who have seen my Hoya tour or my regular plant tours in previous videos kind of recognize this space. It's against my west-southwest aspect window. And as you can see, without these trellises, I don't know what this would have turned into. Would have been a big old mess. So everything here is doing fairly well for the change in the season, and I'm just gonna continue to give them their care requirements and see how far some of these can grow into kind of the quiet season. Here's another little area of my home where I have quite a few Hoyas trellised and just doing their darn things. So this one, my Hoya rotundiflora, is kind of getting used to its trellis. I decided to give that a try. I'm not entirely certain that this one is one that thoroughly appreciates the trellis, but it has these tendrils that were getting kind of long and kind of catching other plants, so I decided to try and see if it would take to it. One of them's doing okay, the other one's kind of like so we'll see how it does. Always listen to your plants too. If they're not doing something naturally, or if they start to decline when you're putting them in a different space, or you're doing something differently with them, just listen to them. But yeah, this is kind of a cool little space as well. Another way to really save space on your shelves and on your tabletops is to put certain plants on your walls. And you might have caught my last video, which was kind of a little mini tutorial on how to do this. This is a ripsalis, a jungle cactus. It's an epiphytic plant that grows endemic to Central and South America. Most ripsalis species are. And in my last video, I went ahead and created this wall mount for it. So it is just enjoying its life here in a little bit of the epiphytic potting mix that I use for my Hoya and my jungle cacti as well. Most of my plants actually, because it's just such a good mix. It's so airy and just kind of a nice chunky blend. But a little bit underneath the sphagnum moss here, and then it's surrounded by the sphagnum, which keeps everything kind of in place and also keeps it pretty hydrated. So it's just secured to this board with some fishing line and these screws. I will link the tutorial that I posted up in the cards. I'll also put it down in the description. But this is such a great way to save space. Now, bear in mind, you don't want to do this with every plant you own. Some plants take to it a lot better than others would. So I wouldn't recommend doing this with like a calathea, or I don't know. You might be able to get away with it with like a philodendron, but you'd really want to keep an eye on it. It really is best suited for plants that naturally spend their lives up in the canopy, attached to other plants and trees, that kind of thing. So they are used to this lifestyle, and if you recreate it, it's kind of a win-win. That's space on your shelves, and it gets to hang out up high. So we are once again in my plant room, and I have currently 3 wall-mounted plants. 2 of them are pretty commonly seen with this type of setup. So my Ripsalis and then my staghorn fern. I have heard that you can wall mount bird's nest ferns. I think these guys are just gonna need, or this one is gonna need a little bit more attention, maybe a little bit more frequent waterings for it. But I have seen them mounted, so it was something I was really interested in trying. This plant it's one of my plants that was outside for a lot of the summer, and it just wasn't doing super great. Since I've mounted it though, I've seen some new growth popping out of it, and it kind of seems to be stable. So we're gonna give it a try and see if I can salvage it. It's getting a new life. But yeah, I love the look of this. And I have one more piece of cedar board and one more potential space right there to kind of complete this quadrilogy here. So let me know in the comments if there is a certain plant you've seen in my videos that you would suggest that I try mounting. I'd be interested to see that. Polynura in the way. But yeah, it's just a really neat, inventive way to get plants into your space, but out of the way, but still visible and enjoyable. Speaking of that Polynura, here's a great example of another space saver using hanging baskets. And you'll see these a lot on porches and patios. The baskets you can suspend from the beams. They also work really well indoors. I have a few of them here. This one, this Hoya, sorry about that light right there. And then my big pubic calyx in the corner over there. And this beautiful thing. So these two, let's see. Oh, let me turn that light off. Okay, so that's so much better. So this is my Hoya Crinkle 8. That is my pubic calyx. Both of these are in dollar store hanging baskets. So they're very cheap, lightweight, but they do the job well. These plants are both in plastic pots, so, you know, we're keeping the weight down, even though the plants themselves are fairly large. But, you know, it looks really quite chic, I think. I like it a lot. And macrame hangers, of course, are an option, and they look great. And if you're a crafty person, that works dually well. But I like the look of these baskets. And you can, of course, also thrift baskets. This is an antique fruit basket. I think I either picked this up from a relative or even found it at a garage sale. It's been so long, I can't really remember how it came into my possession. But it serves as a really beautiful display for some of these drapey Hoya that need some room. So I have my lacunosa up top there. And then I have my linearis in the middle. That's getting long. Holy cow. Look at that. And then, of course, my pride and joy, my Hoya polynura. So it's a really great way to highlight plants that you're proud of and that you want to feature and that you enjoy looking at front and center. I recommend the basket method. Another very simple way to create some extra space on your shelves is to add height. And by that I mean putting your plants on things. So as you can see in this little display in my bedroom, I have a couple of calathea, and I also have a peperomia over here. I used to have a couple extra plants on here, you know, some lower light plants. Things kind of switch out and around in my house. So right now it's just these three, but I am considering adding more to this little setup because I like the dynamic of the different heights of plants kind of interplaying with each other. So as you can see, I'm using just a regular like patio garden plant stand. It's solid concrete, so it's pretty weighty, but I like it. It's also a neutral color, so it kind of blends in and lets the plant speak for itself. That's kind of how I approach their pots too. I really am drawn. You know, there are some interesting pots that I enjoy, statement pieces. But I'm drawn to the neutral colors with pots, white, off-white, and then terracotta to an extent when it's together. Like all of my jungle cacti are in terracotta pots, and I love the look of them on their shelf together. But you know, you can be creative with the items that you use to create that height with your plants. So like this peperomia here, this peperomia scandens, variegata, is sitting on a couple of plant books. You know, it's your chance to be creative and find things that you love and that you want to display in your home along with the beautiful plants that you have. So we're still in my bedroom, but it's mainly to show you kind of a really good example of a use of supplemental or grow lights. In my house anyway, this corner, this wardrobe in this corner over my shoulder here gets very, very minimal direct light. It's in between windows. It's in between a north-facing window and a west-facing window all the way over there. So it's light enough in that corner to read a book during the day, but it's not a welcome environment for the plants that I have there without that light. Specifically, I have a bunch of Hoya on that wardrobe, and I really wanted plants in that corner. I could have gone with something that was a little bit lower light, but I ended up picking up an aspect grow light. I actually have a couple in my house now. I splurged on lighting a little bit, but for me, it was really worth it because it adds a lot to my space. It's just a very warm, livable situation that illuminates this corner and provides the needed light energy for these plants. And if I notice a plant declining, I will pull it out and get it closer to a natural light source. So this has been some trial and error over here. If you live in a home that doesn't get a lot of natural light in places, you can supplement. And it's just going to take a little bit of research, finding out what plants would feasibly do well in an artificial lighting situation. And it's a really good way to free up some of that prime real estate that's closer to the windows in your home that you want to reserve for other plants that might need that natural light a little bit more and are less flexible or adaptable than some. So here's a look at the current setup on that wardrobe under this aspect grow light here. So right now I have a Hoya hybrid. This is the Crinkles Tinkles, which is doing quite well. I have my Hoya Fitchii under here now, and those are new since I moved it here. I have a couple of pubicalax. I have the Black Dragon pubicalax, which has some growth. My regular, well, what I thought was a Hoya pubicalax Hawaiian purple, but has been producing leaves that would indicate to me that this is a pink silver, which is kind of interesting. I thought I had a pink silver that's a different plant, but who knows? It's cute. I like it. It's growing well. Back there, Hoya Iris Marie with some new vines on it. And then over here is my Hoya Camphorifolia. And this one's kind of an experiment. I had it under here when I had first gotten it, and it wasn't doing so hot. And so I had moved it into another room, and it put on a bunch of growth this summer. And then I moved it back over here to see if I could, you know, how it would do under kind of the stronger artificial light versus the weaker natural light. And it's doing okay. I just noticed some dieback on these vines, so that could be a watering issue. I'll have to keep an eye on this one. And then Rotundiflora is kind of an experiment too. This has been in my west window on a different shelf with some other Hoyas, so for most of the day it was under a grow light, and then would get a little bit of afternoon light, probably around 3-4 p.m. So I think it should do okay under here. Another tip I have, and I should really be better myself about practicing this, is to consolidate plants that you have duplicates of. I'm holding in my hand this gorgeous Hoya macrophylla that's just been doing its thing all summer. My other hand, I have another Hoya macrophylla. So these two plants, same plant. I got this one off of Etsy from an Etsy seller before I got this one. This one's from Tonkadale, my local greenhouse here in the cities. And I probably waited several months after receiving this one. And it wasn't doing a lot. It wasn't growing. I had no new leaves on it. It's just kind of sitting there being alive, but barely, for a long time. And when I went to Tonkadale one day, I had decided that I was just going to pick one of these up because they were beautiful and they were there, and I was kind of done waiting for this one. And wouldn't you know, after bringing this one home, this one started putting out growth. And they both have done phenomenally this summer. And they both take up a lot of space together on my Hoya shelf in my plant room. So I figured might as well just kind of repot them together. It's the end of the growing season. This one needs to be repotted anyway. It's still in its soil from Tonkadale, and I don't know really how awesome I feel about that. But because I like my own mix a lot. Nothing against them. I like my own mix. So that's what I think the plan is I'm going to repot these together, have an even bigger plant. Pretty sure there's a space. Yeah, there's a gap over here. I could just kind of put them together and maybe even hang this one to free up quite a bit of space on my plant shelf. So yeah, it's something to think about anyway. If you know that you have accumulated a few of the same plant, it's just maybe something to think about because, you know, if you want them in different parts of your home, fine. If you are really kind of needing some extra space, it would be easy to do. So the last tip I have for space saving with your plants is not a unique one. I didn't come up with it. I didn't come up with any of these, really. I've just tried them and they seem to work for me. But the last one I wanted to share with you is one that I actually haven't really dabbled in much yet, which is creating planters or gardens out of different plants in your collection that have similar care needs like watering, light, etc. So they're not going to be hurt or suffer from being in the same planter together. Now, not too long ago, I purchased this beautiful terracotta bowl with the intent to maybe put some cacti or succulents in it and create a display, because all of my plants, but really all of my cacti and succulents, not these cacti, but you know, the little spiky boys, they're all potted separately and they're all quite small. So I'm using a bunch of these little pots and they're kind of all on a shelf, scattered actually. They're not all on the same shelf. But I just thought it would be pretty, A, but also useful, B, to kind of consolidate them and get them into one space, but also create something that is visually pleasing. So that was the idea there. I haven't done it yet. I did make an attempt with some of my succulents that I had outdoors this summer, and I'm almost embarrassed to show you what that looks like right now, but I'm gonna. So here is my first attempt at a succulent arrangement. And it has to live in this scary furnace room just a little bit longer. Doing all right though, I guess, considering what it's been through. I know, right? That's not the cutest thing at all. But it was a first try, and it was with plants that I'm kind of on the fence about, but I'm trying to save right now. And they needed a place to be, and I figured we could consolidate and have them together for now. So they're all succulents, they have the same care needs. What I'm really thinking about for this, and excited about, is being able to play on color and texture with different plants versus, you know, consolidating when you're putting duplicates of the same plant in a larger pot. With gardens and arrangements, you get that interplay of the differences between the plants, and that can really be beautiful. You can make some really pretty things. And so this is just kind of a taste of where my mind is at for my cactus one. I'm going to do cactus and probably aloe. This is a mountain aloe. This is a bishop's cap. So kind of putting them in the same planter. I also have a variegated agave, which I think would be really neat in there. I'm trying to think what else I would put in there. I have, I don't know if I would put a sansevieria in there, just because I have a samurai sansevieria and it really doesn't require hardly any water. So it might be right in line with these plants as well. I have a couple of miniature cactuses that I might put in there. Got some options, so I will definitely keep you posted on what that turns into if and when I get there. All right, everybody, that is the video. Just a handful of ideas for possibly making some space in your home for your plants. If you have any other ideas that I neglected to mention in this video, please let us all know down in the comments below. I think, you know, the more options and creative solutions we can come up with, the better off we all are. So until next time, you guys, I hope everybody's doing well, staying safe and healthy, and enjoy your plants.